Ah, the system, the sweet little maze they built for you. Wake up, dress up, show up, beg for a chair at someone else's table. Smile politely, shake hands, nod like a puppet while your soul silently screams. They hand you a paper, call it a resume, then measure your worth in bullet points and buzzwords. And you, desperate, exhausted, molded by fear, play the part so well. Stop begging for tables, huh? That's rich, really rich. You see, most people, they walk around with their little ties, polished shoes, resumes clutched like golden tickets, knocking on doors that were never meant to open, tables they weren't even invited to, tables where the plates are already full and the silverware is already stained, yet still they beg. Oh, please give me a chair. Please give me a crumb. Pathetic, isn't it? They dress up their desperation in ambition, but it's the same circus act, just with fancier makeup. They look at someone else's success and say, if only I could just sit there, just one chance. But they forget, some of us weren't made to sit. Some of us were made to flip the whole table upside down and build a throne out of the broken legs. Some of us were made for something far more unsettling. You ever notice how people cling to the approval of systems that never cared about them? Like a child clings to a monster thinking it's their savior, but the monster smiles, feeds them promises, and keeps them tame, because if they ever realized the truth, that they were never meant to grovel, they'd stop crawling and start creating. And that scares the system more than anything. Why beg for a seat when you were meant to build the table yourself from scratch, with blood on your hands and vision in your eyes? Why chase crumbs from a master's feast when you carry the recipe for a revolution inside you? But no, that kind of thinking is dangerous, isn't it? Too wild, too disruptive, too free. They want you obedient, structured, predictable. Wake up at 7, smile, submit your application, shake hands, say thank you, wait for a call back, wait for permission, wait for someone to say, okay, now you're allowed to live. But who gave them that power in the first place? Who made them the gatekeepers of your destiny? The truth is, most people have never tasted freedom, not real freedom. They confuse routine with purpose. They confuse paychecks with identity. They say, I've got a good job, but their soul is gasping for air. And that's the joke. That's the cosmic punchline. You think you're winning because you've got a badge, a cubicle, and a schedule. But deep down, you're starving. You're hollow. You're bored out of your divine mind. Now imagine this. Imagine you stop begging. Imagine you stop knocking on doors that were never meant to open. Imagine you burn the resume, tear off the tie, spit on the system and say, I don't need your table. I'll build my own. That's power. Not the kind they sell in boardrooms and business schools. Real power. The kind that rattles chains and shakes foundations. But that kind of power, oh, it comes with chaos. It comes with isolation. You won't be clapped for. You won't be liked. You won't be invited to dinner parties. Good. That's how you know you're doing it right. Because the world doesn't reward builders, it fears them. It fears those who dare to dream without instruction manuals. So while they're busy fighting for scraps, you're busy crafting a kingdom. While they're applying for jobs, you're applying pressure. While they're praying for managers to notice them, you're listening to something higher, something wilder, something divine. You see, when you stop begging, something strange happens. The fear fades, the fog clears. The voice inside you, yeah, that one you've been ignoring, it starts to roar. It tells you things, dangerous things, beautiful things, things like you were never meant to fit in, things like you were born to disrupt, things like build even if no one claps. And when you finally listen to that voice, you'll laugh. Oh, you'll laugh at how small you were thinking. You'll laugh at every rejection letter, every interview, every suit you wore just to be palatable. Because now you're not looking for approval. You're looking for bricks, for fire, for blueprints. You're not asking anymore, you're declaring. You're not waiting for a door to open, you're breaking the wall. As awe, control, that delicious illusion, that little trick humans play on themselves to feel safe in a world that's anything but. You see, people, they love the idea of being in charge. They wake up, brush their teeth, organize their lives into neat little boxes. Plans, goals, routines. Oh yes, they love routines. This is what I'll do today. This is how it should go. This is what must happen. Cute, really, like a child drawing castles in the sand and thinking the tide won't come. But oh, the tide always comes, doesn't it? People get so angry when things don't go their way. So broken, so offended. Why me? They scream. Why now? They pace around like little puppets whose strings got tangled because they thought they were the puppeteers, thought they were the gods of their own little world. But the truth, the twisted little truth, is that you control nothing. Not the winds, not the storms, not the time, not the people, not even your own heart sometimes. But here's the real kicker. The ones who suffer most aren't the ones who lost control. No, no. It's the ones who believed they had it to begin with. That's the tragedy. That's the joke. They put their faith in a fantasy, and when reality slapped them across the face, they called it, but it wasn't chaos, it was just the truth. You want to hear something really funny? The freest people are the ones who let go. The ones who dance in the rain instead of cursing the clouds. The ones who laugh when the plan burns. The ones who say, fine, take the map, I'll wander. Because when you stop clinging, that's when you start flying. When you stop forcing, that's when things start flowing. But oh, people hate that. They hate surrender. They call it weakness, they call it failure, but deep down, they envy it. They envy the ones who move with the wind instead of trying to command it. They'll never say it out loud, of course, too proud for that. They'll keep pretending, keep scripting their lives like bad theater, but watch their eyes. When they see someone who's let go, truly let go, there's a flicker of something between fear and admiration, because deep down they know the truth they're too afraid to live. And don't get me started on the fear. That sticky little parasite. Fear of losing, fear of failing, fear of not knowing what comes next. That's what keeps them chained to their illusion of control. That's what keeps them chasing plans instead of purpose. That's what makes them mistake comfort for peace. But peace doesn't come from control. It comes from trust. Trust in something higher, deeper, wilder, something beyond their spreadsheets and to-do lists. You ever wonder why some of the most powerful moments in life come from the unexpected, the unplanned? That's no coincidence. That's the universe reminding you you're not the author of everything. Sometimes you're just the pen, and if you just stop fighting it, stop rewriting the story mid-sentence, you'd see the masterpiece that's unfolding. But no, most people would rather scribble over every page until it's all just noise. You see, there's a kind of madness in letting go, a terrifying kind of freedom, and once you taste it, oh, you never go back. You stop trying to control people, control outcomes, control timing. You start observing, flowing, trusting. You realize life isn't a machine to be programmed, it's a storm to be danced in. It's a river to surrender to. But that's not what they teach you, is it? No, they teach you to grip tighter, plan harder, push more, because if you just work hard enough, everything will go your way, right? Right? Wrong. Control is a cage dressed up as security, and most people live their whole lives inside it, rattling the bars and wondering why they feel so tired. But the key's been in their pocket the whole time. All they had to do was trust. Trust that they were never meant to know everything. Trust that the detours have meaning. Trust that the delays are not denials. Trust that something, call it God, call it fate, call it whatever you want, is orchestrating a symphony far greater than your little checklist. But no, they'd rather conduct an orchestra with broken strings and call it progress. Oh, so you think silence is weakness, do you? You think keeping your mouth shut means you've lost the battle? That if you're not shouting, screaming, throwing your fists in the air, you're somehow falling behind? That's the comedy right there. That's the punchline. Because silence is power disguised as stillness. It's not the coward's retreat, it's the warrior's weapon. But most people, they panic in silence. They squirm, they itch, they crumble under the weight of their own thoughts, like children left alone in a dark room hearing whispers that were never there to begin with. You see, people, they love noise, they cling to it. Music, phones, television, endless chatter, distraction after distraction, just to keep themselves from hearing what's really going on inside. Because that's what silence does, doesn't it? It strips away the show, the mask, the illusion. And when that curtain falls, all that's left is you, naked, unarmed, real. And that terrifies them. So they talk, they post, they scream, they argue, they pretend to be strong, to be informed, to be loud, as if volume ever equaled wisdom, as if noise ever solved anything worth solving. But silence, silence knows. Silence sees what the eyes miss. It hears what the ears ignore. When you're silent, you're not absent, you're observant. You're watching, calculating, absorbing. You become the storm that brews beneath the calm sky, the volcano beneath the silent mountain. And while the world dances, barks, and burns in chaos, you wait. Patient, focused, deadly. Funny thing about silence. It makes people uncomfortable. They'll try to break it, fill it, shatter it, because it reminds them of what they're running from. Their insecurities, their fears, their fragile egos, that gnawing emptiness they try to drown with attention. But when you stay silent, you force them to face it. You become a mirror, a threat, a mystery they can't decode, and humans hate what they can't decode. They fear it, they envy it, they call it arrogance, they call it antisocial, they call it whatever makes them feel safe again. But silence is not absence, it's presence. A presence so powerful it doesn't need to beg to be noticed. It doesn't need applause, approval, or acknowledgement. It simply exists, and everything else bends around it. You know why predators move silently? Because noise gives you away. And if you're truly dangerous, truly in control, you don't need noise. You don't need to announce yourself. Your energy does that for you. And then there's the spiritual silence. Oh, the one that goes beyond words, beyond thought. The kind of silence where you don't just quiet the world, you quiet yourself. That's the space where the divine speaks, not through thunder, not through fire, not through applause, but through stillness. That gentle, eerie stillness that tells you everything you need to know without saying a word, but most people miss it. They drown it out. They're too busy demanding answers, begging for signs, shouting at the heavens, and all the while the answer was already echoing in the silence. But they didn't know how to listen. Because listening, real listening, that's an art. It requires surrender, humility, trust. But the loud ones, the restless ones, they don't have that. They only have noise. And noise is cheap. Anyone can make noise. But silence has to be earned. It's the mark of the ones who've faced their demon, who've walked through fire and come out with nothing to prove, who've stopped trying to explain themselves to a world that doesn't even understand itself. And let's not forget how silence protects you. You speak less, you reveal less, you become unpredictable, unreadable. That's dangerous. That's powerful. Because once people know your triggers, your fears, your plans, they control you. But silence gives you back the power. It's your shield, your armor, your advantage. The world's full of people trying to be heard, trying to be seen, trying to be validated, but the real ones, they don't chase that. They let the world talk while they move in silence. And when the time is right, when the stage is theirs, they don't need to shout, they just speak once. And the whole room goes quiet. People always want to rush the miracle. They want the breakthrough without the breakdown. They want the crown without the cross. They want God to move, but they can't stop moving. Always running, always checking, always talking, always comparing, always pushing things that aren't meant to bloom yet. They say they trust the process, but their hands are always in the pot, stirring, tweaking, doubting, as if God needs their help to do what only He can do, as if miracles respond to panic, as if heaven operates on their little human timeline. And oh, how beautifully ironic it is, they cry for a miracle, but can't sit still long enough to receive it. They ask for peace, but won't silence their own chaos. They ask for clarity, but their minds are louder than God's whisper. You see the joke? The punchline is in their impatience. It's in the way they demand signs while ignoring the silence that carries the answer. Because sometimes the most divine instruction you'll ever receive is, be quiet. But that's the hardest pill for them to swallow. Silence, stillness, restraint, no. That's weakness in their eyes, that's inaction, that's fear. But oh, it's not, it's warfare, it's divine strategy. You think lions roar every time they hunt? No. They crouch, they wait, they move only when it's time. But these people, they want to scream their way into blessings. They want to announce every prayer before it's even answered. They want to tell the world they're about to rise, while God is telling them to sit the hell down. There's a power in silence that drives noisy souls mad, because silence makes them confront themselves. It forces them to sit with their doubts, their fears, their hidden agendas. That's why they can't do it. That's why they keep opening their mouths, talking about their vision before it's matured, speaking of doors that haven't opened yet, sharing dreams that haven't even taken root, and then when things fall apart, they blame the world, the devil, the haters, never once thinking maybe it was their own noise that disturbed the miracle. 'Cause you see, miracles don't respond to noise. They respond to obedience, to trust, to surrender. Not just the sweet kind of surrender people post about. I mean real surrender. The kind that says, I don't need to see it to believe it. The kind that says, even if nothing changes today, I'll keep walking like it already did. The kind that doesn't beg for evidence, it just believes. But faith like that, oh, that's rare, because faith like that doesn't feed the ego, it starves it. And ego hates silence. Ego wants to be seen. Ego wants to be applauded. Ego wants to update everybody on every little move. Look, I'm praying. Look, I'm fasting. Look, I'm building something great. But when God tells you to be quiet, He's not punishing you. He's protecting what He's planting in you. Because some things grow better in secret. Some miracles require darkness. Some promises only bloom in silence, hidden from the eyes of envy, shielded from the whispers of doubt, guarded from the reach of sabotage. But of course, they don't teach that part. They don't talk about that in motivational speeches, because silence doesn't sell. Stillness doesn't trend, but it's the most dangerous weapon you'll ever carry. When you master silence, you become untouchable. You stop reacting, you stop explaining, you stop bleeding in front of people who'd love to see you weak. You learn to move in shadows, to strike in timing, to wait with precision. And when your miracle comes, because it will, it won't come with a bang. It'll come quietly, unmistakably. And those who doubted you, they won't hear it coming, but you'll know. You'll know because you were quiet enough to sense the shift. You were still enough to feel the change in the wind. While others were shouting, you were listening. While they were posting, you were praying. While they were seeking validation, you were seeking direction. That's what separates the loud from the chosen, the imitators from the anointed, the restless from the prepared. Silence isn't absence, it's alignment. And alignment doesn't need a microphone. It just needs a soul that knows how to wait. When the world is screaming, run, they keep asking, why is nothing happening? Oh, but something is happening. Just not in the way their impatient little minds expect it. You see, they think miracles come with flashing lights and thunderous applause. They think God's power has to look like fireworks. But they miss the real magic, the subtle shift, the invisible rearranging behind the curtain. They don't understand that heaven doesn't work on their schedule. It's not interested in putting on a show for their social media feeds. It doesn't owe them an announcement. It doesn't care about their timelines. So they get anxious, they get restless, they start poking God with prayers like He's some vending machine. Tap in a few verses, drop a few tears, press A1, and poof. They want a miracle to fall into their lap, but it doesn't work like that, does it? No. Because God's greatest moves often happen in silence, while they're panicking, while they're overthinking, while they're doubting and double-checking, something deeper is unfolding, something quiet, something hidden, but because it's not loud, they think nothing's happening. That's where they go wrong. That's where they miss it. So what do? They start scrambling, rushing into places they weren't called to, settling for things that look like blessings but reek of desperation, taking shortcuts wrapped in false promises, because waiting on God, that's too slow for them. They want results, not refinement. They want comfort, not character. They want the fruit without the pruning. And oh, when things don't move fast enough, they start questioning everything. Maybe God changed his mind. Maybe I heard wrong. Maybe I'm being punished. No. Maybe they just never learned how to wait without whining. Maybe they don't understand that God's silence isn't rejection, it's preparation. But patience? That's a foreign concept to most. Patience requires trust. Patience means letting go of control. And control is their addiction. They need to feel like they're doing something, even if it's self-sabotage. They'd rather run into a burning building than sit quietly and let God rebuild the foundation. Because silence is uncomfortable, stillness is terrifying, not because nothing's happening, but because it exposes everything they tried to hide, the fear, the doubt, the emptiness they tried to bury under constant movement. And then comes the comparison, the ugliest part of it all. Looking left and right, measuring their waiting room against someone else's highlight reel. Is their miracle here and mine isn't? Why are they rising while I'm still stuck? But they don't see the backstage. They don't see the battles others fought in private. They don't see the cost that came with that crown. They just want what glitters without the fire that forged it. So they complain, they crumble, they compromise, all because they think silence equals abandonment. But what if silence is sacred? What if the waiting is the womb of the miracle? What if the reason nothing looks different on the outside is because everything is shifting on the inside? But no, they won't accept that, because it doesn't sound dramatic enough. It doesn't sound spiritual enough. They want a burning bush, not a quiet whisper. They want a storm to part the seas, not a gentle nudge in the spirit. But God doesn't need noise to be powerful. He doesn't need spectacle to be sovereign. Sometimes his greatest works are invisible until they're undeniable. And oh, when that moment finally comes, when the miracle shows up, it won't need an introduction. It won't need a parade. It'll be so perfectly timed, so divinely aligned, that even the skeptics will be silenced. But those who couldn't wait, they'll miss it. They'll be too tired, too bitter, too distracted to even recognize it. Because while they were looking for fireworks, they missed the spark. While they were chasing signs, they ignored the silence. While they were fighting the stillness, they overlooked the strategy. The truth is, most people don't lose because God didn't show up. They lose because they moved too soon. They spoke too early. They panicked too fast. They let impatience poison what was still in process. And that's the cruel twist of it all. They were never far from the miracle. It was always coming, always being built behind the veil. But they couldn't stay still long enough to see it. They couldn't handle the quiet. They couldn't trust the silence. So they settled for noise. They settled for substitutes. They settled for anything that made them feel like something was happening, even if it wasn't heaven's doing. They say faith is believing in what you can't see. But most people only believe in what they can control. Funny, isn't it? They'll chant prayers, post verses, put on halos for show, but the moment they're asked to release control, to actually surrender, oh no, the panic sets in. Because deep down, they don't really trust the divine. They trust their plans, their routines, their backup plans. God is just a decorative piece on their shelf of illusion. When life spins out of their grip, they don't fall into faith, they fall into fear, into frenzy, into frantic schemes to fix what was never theirs to fix. And yet, they still wonder why peace never visits their doorstep. You see, surrender sounds beautiful in theory, but in reality it's terrifying. Because it means letting go of the wheel, letting go of the blueprint, letting go of the illusion that you're in charge. And most people, they'd rather crash the car than give up the driver's seat. They'd rather manipulate the outcome than trust in something they can't predict. That's the disease, control disguised as faith, anxiety dressed up as diligence, micromanaging wrapped in prayer. They say they trust God, but their actions scream otherwise. They say your will be done, but deep down they're whispering, as long as it matches mine. But here's the bitter truth. The more you cling, the more you suffer. The more you force, the more you bleed. Because some doors won't open no matter how hard you push. Some battles aren't meant to be fought. They're meant to be handed over. But ego won't allow that. Ego wants to be the savior, the solver, the hero of its own story. It doesn't want to wait for divine timing. It wants results now. It wants comfort now. It wants the crown without carrying the cross. And when things don't go according to its script, it throws a tantrum. Spiritualized, of course. Covered in scripture, soaked in drama, laced with pity. But underneath it all, it's just fear of losing control. And what happens when that fear takes over? They start playing God, making decisions out of desperation, forcing relationship, chasing dead ends, settling for crumbs and calling it a feast. They get impatient and marry the wrong purpose. They get frustrated and accept counterfeit blessings. They take detours that delay their destiny, all because they couldn't surrender, all because they couldn't sit still in the silence and let the divine unfold things its way. It's tragic, really, watching people sabotage miracles with their own hands, watching them decorate cages and call it safety, watching them build entire lives around plans God never approved, and then cry when it crumbles. And the worst part? They start blaming heaven for the mess they created. Why is this happening to me? They cry. Where is God? They scream. But it was never God who abandoned them. It was them who hijacked the process. It was them who couldn't let go long enough to let heaven take the lead. They handed over the wheel, then grabbed it back the moment the road curved. They prayed for a miracle, then tried to manufacture it. They asked for guidance, then ignored every sign that didn't match their agenda. They wanted divine help, but only on their terms, only in their language, only if it came gift-wrapped in comfort and certainty. And oh, the irony, the very control they worship becomes the prison they hate, because control doesn't bring peace. It brings pressure. Pressure to perform, pressure to predict, pressure to hold everything together while your soul falls apart. That's the real madness. That's the silent suffering no one talks about, the torment of trying to play a role you were never meant to carry, the fatigue of being your own savior in a battle that wasn't yours to fight, the exhaustion of building a kingdom on fear and calling it wisdom. But surrender is violent to the ego. It's a war against pride. It's a rebellion against fear. It's not weakness. It's warfare. It's standing in the middle of chaos and saying, I don't have to fix this, I just have to trust. It's walking blindfolded in the dark and knowing you're still being led. It's choosing peace over proof, purpose over panic, presence over performance. Most people aren't ready for that. Most people would rather keep their hands on the wheel, even if it drives them off a cliff. Because trusting what you cannot see, that's the real leap. That's the real transformation. That's the real test that separates the ones who walk in purpose from the ones